Imagine how amazing Twitter would be if every celebrity clapped back at their fans/haters like KD has been.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and as always you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Taking a slight break here from the team preview podcast, of which we've got 2 to go, the Clippers and the Nets, and they'll be coming out soon. But we're going to be going back to the positional tiers series of podcasts in this show, and we're going to be talking about the small forwards now. So to discuss his article over on Basketball Monster, it is of course the one and only Mr. M. Smith. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, J-Lo. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to have you. Good to have you back on. And we're going to go through the small forwards. You can go back and listen to our show on the point guards. You can go back and listen to our show on shooting guards. And of course, Matt's got it all written down in his articles over on Basketball Monster. Another reminder that our memberships are open for Basketball Monster. Get your draft tracker information. There's some new tutorials are going up. I've done 3 of those: a draft tracker tutorial, a league settings tutorial, and a projections versus rankings tutorial, which you can go find on the site or on my YouTube channel as well, just to see how things all work over on Basketball Monster. So make sure you are checking that out. Let's get straight into these small forwards.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's start by starting at tier 1. It's always the way for us to start off, Matty. And I don't think many people are going to be surprised who's sitting right up at the very top of this list.
Yeah, 2 top 5 players in Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Ooh, you've been practicing that one.
I have, because I've got called out last year saying Giannis, so it has to be Giannis, apparently.
Yep.
I don't know what we can say. These guys are unbelievable. Do you have if you had a top 3, top 5 pick, would you lean one way or the other?
If it was Roto, I would take Durant. Yep. If it was head-to-head, I would take Yanni. And that's mainly because I think, and I was talking to Danny LaRue on the Warriors preview today, and we both agreed that we just think that the Warriors guys might play 2 or 3 fewer games this season. We don't know when that will be, and because of the strengthening of their team, they have a lesser chip on their shoulder this season, that these guys might play a minute less, a half a minute less per game this year, which I've sort of tried to bake into the projections a little bit. But Yanni is going to be going balls to the wall. He could play 37 minutes a night, trying to carry this Bucks team, whereas Durant might go to 33. He might go to 32 and a half minutes and might play 72 games instead of Yanni going out there for 80 games. So in head-to-head, that's what I'd look at. In Roto, because of the efficiency, I would take Durant.
Yep, no, fair call. And yeah, in the projections, they come out so tight. Like points are pretty much even, rebounds are pretty much even, assists are pretty much even. Obviously, Giannis has got a blocks advantage. The field goal percentage comes out even, but you've got Giannis playing 3 more minutes a game. So if they were to play exactly the same amount of minutes, I think Durant would have the edge. And yeah, he gets the tick in free throw percentage, and obviously for threes as well. So I'm still probably slightly leaning Durant. I'm pretty sure he was the number 1 player before he got injured last season, but Giannis still does have a higher upside and more room to grow. I heard you on I think it was the Bucks season preview talking about, Giannis could be 25, 9, 7 or 8 and 2 and a 3 or 3.5 as well, which would just blow out everyone out of the water.
Oh yeah, if he starts hitting his threes at 34%, like he's like a 20-something% shooter, if he goes to 34%, which is still below average, then it's pretty much no discussion for who the number 1 guy is, because again, getting 2 steals or 2 blocks per game is almost impossible, and then you add that with 25-point scoring, huge field goal percent, and the fact that his free throws, while they are an issue and they tend to drop off at the end of the year, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, but he did improve them last season, and if he can hover around 60, 76, 77, 78, then it's fine. Then it's not really a concern. It's not a strength, but it's not a concern as opposed to him sitting at 72 and going at 9 attempts per game, which is a real problem. But he could get that up, and that is an issue. So you do have to sort of consider that. But I feel okay that he's going to at least be able to return average value for the free throw percentage.
Yep.
Tier 2, we've got one guy just sitting there all by himself. Who is it?
Yeah, it's Kawhi Leonard. So he's grouped in this sort of top 8 discussion that we have around the top 8 players for the season. He's towards the back end of that, or most likely the 8th player in that group. So yeah, there's there's enough of a gap between the top two and Kawhi, and then also Kawhi and the guy in tier three, I believe. So, yeah, once again, no real discussion needed around Kawhi, just a beast across so many categories. And I think what people didn't realise last year was he was one of the most efficient players from the free throw line, and just gave teams a massive boost in that particular category.
Yeah, he was huge from the line. He went there so many times. He hit them at such a high rate. What he has seen is his his steal rate start to drop a little bit over the last couple of seasons. He used to be a consistent 2+ guy. It has dropped a little bit there. You talk about him being as part of the top 8 guys, and I agree with that, and we classify them as separate. But is there any circumstance where he wouldn't be the 8th guy taken, do you think? To me, he is just 8. Like, he is just number 8. Like, that is it. Like, I don't see any situation where you would take him at 6 or 5 or anything. I just feel like he's number 8.
Yeah, he's number 8 for me as well. And I guess we could probably expand it to make it a 9 if Jokic is that clear-cut 9. I guess you can throw in LeBron James, who's in that tier 3 now as well, at the back end of the first round. But yeah, I just can't see sort of where you would take him in front of Curry, Durant, Davis, Towns, all those other guys. So yeah, we'll just call him Kawhi 8.
If you are ever at pick 8 and someone other than Kawhi falls, I think you should be feeling pretty good. The other thing that people, and I see it posted all the time, is players are avoiding. I'm avoiding all Spurs players because of Popovich resting guys. Now, it's just not as big a deal as what people make it out to be. Like, it just doesn't happen as much as what people actually say that it happens. People act like he's sitting out 5 games through March. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, he sat out a game in April. We don't count those games in April. He had 2 games in March that he missed, and I'm trying to think back. I think he was injured in those games. So I don't think there's any real worry. Like, it doesn't bother me too much. Like, Popovich doesn't rest players any more really than any other coach, with the exception of, say, Mike D'Antoni, who doesn't rest anybody. Jason Kidd doesn't really rest anyone, and Tom Thibodeau. Like, pretty much every other coach has got some sort of resting plan in place, and it's not like Pop is just going sick on this and resting these guys all the time. I feel like it's just a really overblown narrative that steers people that go, I won't touch Aldridge because of rest, and I don't touch Aldridge because of other reasons. But I feel like the rest thing is just really overblown with a guy like Kawhi Leonard. Like, here we go, the 23rd of March, he played 38 minutes. The 2 days later, the 25th of March, he played 39 minutes. Like, that's not resting as we get to the end of the season. So I just think that's a little bit overblown.
And I think, once again, that's why the NBA have created a longer season with an extra week and more breaks in between games, is to prevent teams resting, and particular on quieter days and the national TV games. So I can't really see it as being as big of an issue as maybe it has supposedly been in the past.
You mentioned tier 3 before, and that LeBron James is in there. I think I've seen situations where people are like, oh no, LeBron, you got to take him in the second round. Like, people take 15, 16, which is just, it seems crazy to me. To me, he is a lock as a first round guy. I don't see why we think that he's just going to all of a sudden drop. Like, I know the free throws were an issue, but I feel like that was a bit of an outlier season. It was a weird season in that respect for him. And at the end of the first round, whether you take him at 9, 10 or 11, like, I don't think he should be really escaping the first round under any circumstance. Can you understand why he would be?
Not really. Maybe in a rotisserie league due to his free throw percentage.
Yep. But
apart from that, in a head-to-head, maybe people are worried about some rest towards the end of the season, or I don't know. But yeah, we've got that sort of top 8, and then it's Jokic, it's LeBron, and then you've got that really good group of Cousins, Gobert, and then Wall,
all the point
Lillard, Irving, and who have I missed? Kyrie. Lillard, Paul. Yeah, sorry.
Chris Paul.
Yeah. So yeah, some fantastic value at the end of the first round there.
So LeBron played 74 games last year, and he missed 2 games in March. He missed the last 2 games of the season in April. But as I said, you should never play into April really, and especially not into that last week. So look, he missed 2 games in a month. Is that enough to say, I've got to take him at pick 18 now? Because that could happen to anybody. We're not talking about a widespread phenomenon of all these sort of things. Will he be pissed this season that A, he lost the title, that B, Kyrie wanted to trade? Will he have to do more because Isaiah Thomas might not be there for the first 2 months of the season? All those things I'd think he would say yes to. And he put up last season, like, people go, LeBron has dropped off 26.5, 8.5 and 8.5. Like, that's stupid. And yes, if his free throws weren't at 67% and they were at 73%, he wouldn't have been the 9th ranked player. He would have been like the 6th ranked player. And he was the 9th ranked guy last year. So if he's falling to 15, I don't see it. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And he is a clear guy there in that tier 3. And you've got your tier 4 with just the one guy in it as well.
Yep, that's Paul George. Moving across from the Pacers to the OKC Thunder. Remains to be seen how playing with Russell Westbrook will impact him, but it shouldn't be enough for him to fall out of the top 20, I wouldn't think. Still be really strong in points and threes and rebounds from small forward, the steals as well, and really good from the free throw line.
Now, again, people have this worry because that Oladipo sucked last year, and I'm going to rehash this again. Like, Oladipo's value dropped because of his assists. His assists dropped by half, but his steals and blocks is what really hurt him, and his free throw percentage dropped 10%. Nothing to do with playing Russell Westbrook. He still scored in a similar amount to what he scored in Orlando. His efficiency went up playing alongside Westbrook, and KD did all right when he played alongside Russ. And yes, Paul George is not KD, but Paul George is also not Victor Oladipo. Paul George was a top 10 player over the last 2 months of last season. I don't think he'll be there, but smack bang in the middle of the second round in this tier 4 of small forwards, I see no problem. There's no way that he is just falling off the cliff completely and being this, he's got to play next to Russ. Like it's just not. It's not a concern to me. Like it's a minor dip, and I have more concern with the way that Paul George tends to fade during seasons, although he did buck that trend last season rather than playing next to Westbrook. And so, mid second round, I've got no problem. And finding an elite small forward is a really interesting thing in fantasy. You can get wings later, but these top 5 guys are really fantastic in comparison to the rest of the players who are available at this position. We head on to tier 5 now, and we've got a couple of guys grouped in this area, Matt. So who have we got there?
Yeah, there's a massive drop off from the top 5 to the next 2, and sort of tier 5, 6, 7. It's sort of a really average bunch of small forwards, and as you said, we can get a lot of these small forwards late, so we'll get to them shortly. But tier 5 is Gordon Hayward and Robert Covington. So once again, grouping players of similar overall value based on our 8-cap projections. We've heard you talk about Hayward going to move in Boston next to Kyrie, sharing the ball there. Probably more of a reliable 4th round selection, I would think, and Robert Covington still providing those elite steal numbers. Just had a massive second half of last season, so hopefully that can continue even with Ben Simmons there in Philly.
Hayward, again, I've said this plenty of times, he's getting drafted at 23 on ESPN, and that's bullshit. Like, you shouldn't be picking him in the second round. That's requiring him to be like 12 or 13 spots better than what he was last year, and I just do not see that at all. But if he slides into that end of the third round, totally fine. Like, he's going to do what he does in a similar level. Like, any sort of drop in usage might be offset by an increased pace in Boston, but that doesn't mean that he's going to get a whole round better in terms of value. And when we're talking about the top 2 to 3 rounds, going from the end of the third to the end of the second is almost a double in terms of overall value. So that's a huge jump, and he's just not going to be able to do that. Now, as for Covington, people are going to be going, he's got to share it with Embiid, he's got to share it with Simmons and Fulton. That's all true, but not one person is drafting Covington for his scoring. Like, you are not drafting him for his points. I don't think that Simmons and Fultz and Embiid are impacting his ability to get steals. They're not impacting his ability to get threes. In fact, he should be able to hit them at a higher rate this year. He'll still get his blocks coming across from the weak side, and he is a top 5 perimeter defender, in my opinion, in the NBA. He is going to get those minutes. He's going to hit threes. He's going to grab boards. He's going to get steals. He's going to get blocks. But you don't need to pick him in this tier, Matt. He is a guy that you can let slide a little bit. He's getting drafted at 70 in ESPN and Yahoo, and if you let him slide to 55 or 60, so your 4th, 5th round, fifth round more accurately, yep, is a good spot to get him. His value is heavily influenced by steals, though. So if you're not looking for steals, you're punting steals, or you got a strong steals value already, then maybe he's not for you. It's not a one size fit all, as we mention all the time. Tier 6.
Danilo Gallinari, Otto Porter, and Carmelo Anthony. I really do not like this tier. Gallinari, obviously, strong combination of points, threes, and I know you love him for his elite free throw percentage on high volume. But at the same time, he's only averaged 58 games over the past 5 seasons, so missed a lot of time. So if you can get sort of 65 games, 70 games out of him this season, you've done really, really well. We know Otto Porter, his ranking was inflated last year due to his high efficiency and steal rate and low turnovers for those playing in 9-cat leagues. Probably a guy who's more valuable in rotisserie leagues than head-to-head. And Carmelo Anthony, I have him as one of my bust players this season. Just don't see the value there anymore. Over the last 4 seasons, he's gone from ranked being the 8th ranked player, the 26th, 29th, and then 49th. And this season, I expect that to continue further and for him to fall out of the top 50, regardless of where he is.
Yeah, look, we'll start with the first guy in that list. The Rooster, he's got a chance to be a 20-point scorer with the Clippers with that elite free throw percentage. And I guess you could look at it on the positive side. He's dealing with a broken hand at the moment. He's going to be fine. But is that his injury for this season out of the way? Maybe you look on the bright side and look at it that way. But you can't trust him in that sense. But on ESPN, he's getting drafted to pick 88. And that's well below where tier 5 guys should be getting picked. So you can wait on the Rooster and you can get that high free throw percentage points combination in the 7th round, maybe the 8th round, and that's great value. And then, you know what, if you play 65 games, whatever, like you haven't wasted a top 50 pick, but you might have gotten top 50 value for 65 games of the season. So he is an interesting guy. There is that risk there. You got to look at who else is on your team, who else you've got that is an injury risk, and that's something else to look at. Otto Porter, he was pretty poor in the second half of last season. That goes a little bit underappreciated when Bojan Bogdanovic arrived. His shooting dropped from he was like a 46% 3-point shooter. He was down to like 36 in that second half of the season, and that dropped a lot of his numbers down there. His minutes went down. In fact, in the last month, he only played 27 minutes a game. So will Kelly Oubre push up and maybe prevent him from getting 33 and he gets only 31 a night? No, I know they signed him to a max deal, but they pretty much had to. They had no way of replacing him if they didn't do that. And as you said, if you looking at rankings with turnovers turned on, he looks like he's the 25th or 26th best player, and that is just bullshit because you just don't want a guy at that spot who is just really pretty much mediocre in every category, apart from steals where he's good without being elite in that early. So, yeah, he's a bit of a risky pick. At 50 in a roto or in that area, no problem with it at all. And then we go to Melo. Melo's getting overdrafted, which tends to happen. I still think he can have value, and I was just talking with James Marceda today on the Knicks preview, and we both seem to agree that we think that it's more likely that Melo stays on the team the entire season than he gets, say, traded before February. So we don't see that him move, because if he moves off this team and goes somewhere else, the value is going to dip. So I think that if you find him at 60 or 70, I think that's okay to take Melo because he's still a good player. He still can do what he does, but there is that slight risk. But I don't think it's as big as what it's being made out to be. Otherwise, I reckon he would have been gone by now.
Do you really think you'll be able to find him in maybe in a really competitive league where everyone knows what they're doing? They'll let him slide, but in a public league and people get to 43 and they're like, oh yeah, Carmelo Anthony, he's really good. I watch him all the time, and there you go, bang, and pick him, and that's like a waste of a pick.
You mean like those leagues that have the people who I was discussing very loosely with on Twitter today about Melo being a top 10 player in the NBA? You mean those sort of people?
I assume so. I didn't see that conversation, but are you upsetting people on Twitter again, Josh?
No, I haven't. He hasn't responded to me. He said he's a top 10 player, and I just replied back. I think he's a top 10 player in players with the first name Carmelo.
He's a top 10 player in New York.
Just waiting. Yeah, yep, he is that as well. I'm just waiting for a response from that guy. Maybe he won't respond, but I was very I was surprised by it. But people do have this opinion: top 15 guy, top 10 guy, which is bananas. I think he's good, but there is that element of risk there, and to pick him at 40 is bullshit. There's no need for that. We don't need to get into that level of going into Melo at that high. Tier 7.
Andrew Wiggins, Trevor Ariza, and Tobias Harris. Andrew Wiggins just keeps falling and falling. He's never had any problem with his scoring, but I was looking at his stats the other day, and his rebounds, his assists, his blocks, his steals, and his free throw percentage haven't actually improved since his rookie season, which I found phenomenal for such a talented guy. Obviously, a high draft pick. I was really shocked by that.
From memory, and I'm just going to try and look this up as we're talking. Haven't his rebounds decreased?
I think they might
have. Yeah, they've gone from 4.6 in his rookie year to 3.6, and then 4 last year. His steals have been the same. His blocks decreased. Half the amount of blocks per game last year is what he did before. The one thing he did increase was his scoring, obviously, and his 3-point shooting. His true shooting dipped last season as well, went from 54.3 to 53.5. It's still below league average. And with Jimmy Butler taking away some of his shots, and I said this, I can't remember who I even said it about. I think I was talking about maybe Klay Thompson with the Warriors. For a guy whose value is almost entirely derived from the scoring, and when someone comes in and takes those shots away, it can have a big impact. Now, other guys can be immune to that to a degree, like Draymond was for the Warriors last year. What I think Butler can be this year, joining Towns and Wiggins, because if he loses a couple of shots, it doesn't matter because he can get 6 or 7 assists and 2 steals and 6 rebounds, whereas Wiggins isn't doing that. So he loses a couple of shots per game, and that really does impact his overall value. And like Carmelo Anthony, he is going too high, I'm pretty sure, in drafts. So I just have a look here, 49 and 45. Now, in saying that, Matt, points is the hardest category to come by. If anyone tells you that it's not, it's the easiest you can get off the waiver wire, they are lying. It is bullshit. They are not the easiest stat to come by at all. They are the hardest to draft competitively for. They are gone by, you can see it when you look at the statistical scarcity in our draft tracker. That category goes red real quick. After the first round, that goes red, and you can't get points. So if you don't get the high scorers early, forget it. You're not competing in that area, and that's why Wiggins, we might have him ranked at 89th in this tier 7. But if you go, you know what, I need points, and there's no one left who's scoring 20. If you grab him at 60, it's not a bad move because you need to be competitive, or you just need to say, I'm just not winning points and deal with it there. But that does push a guy like that up. What's your take on Ariza? Because I'm pretty down on him. A lot of people are, I guess, anti my take on that. Think, he's had all these top 40 9-cat seasons, but that's very Otto Porter-ish. I just think at his age, with the decline that he had in the second half of last season as well, I'm just concerned that what he did in terms of elite threes and steals and the drop in field goal percentage is just not going to make him worthwhile in that 60 range where he's getting drafted.
Yeah, I'm a little bit down on him too. He's 32 years of age. His production has declined over the past couple of seasons. I think Chris Paul and now James Harden both there. That's going to not only impact on him, but Eric Gordon as well, Ryan Anderson. So, yeah, he's a guy who's sort of falling down the list. We're sort of halfway through our Red Rock Champions League head-to-head draft, and I think Trevor Ariza is still available, and we might be at pick 80 or something off the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he's still available. So I think, people are catching on to the effect, and you've got him at 39% from the field. That's brutal.
Yeah, like he was bad in the second half of last. And normally he's a strong post-All-Star game, got a strong post-All-Star game guy. But he struggled in that second half of the year, and there is that spectre of Carmelo joining the team, even though Melo will play at the 4. Also, I'm just not big on him. As for Toby Harris, I think there's a chance he leads the Pistons in scoring this year. I think there's a chance he's their best player, to be honest. But it never really translates into big fantasy numbers. And in part, that's because he plays next to Andre Drummond. And Harris could be a 7.5 rebound guy, but you're never going to be able to do that playing alongside Drummond. So it restricts him to being more of just a points guy with decent efficiency, but not high enough points to push him into that top 50 consideration. But I feel like he's rock solid in that area. He's I would take him ahead of Ariza in this zone, and a really good roto player because he can do just bits and pieces of everything across the board. I really like him as a solid roto guy in this tier of players.
Yeah, agree. Better roto player, just accumulating those stats as opposed to a head-to-head guy where you really need those big boosts in certain categories. I actually think Avery Bradley might lead the Pistons in scoring this season. Really like him there. Do you want to move on to tier 8?
Yep, got a bunch of guys here. This is what we're talking about with the wings all coming late. So go through you guys here.
Yeah, there's a really good bunch here. We've got, 8 of them. We've got Taurean Prince, TJ Warren, Harrison Barnes, Joe Ingles, Brandon Ingram, Evan Fournier, and Rondé Hollis Jefferson. So do you want to pick a couple out of there who you like maybe more than the others? I know you're really high on TJ Warren in particular.
Yeah, I like what Warren can do. Talk about points, and you talk about points at high efficiency. I know that Warren's going to score points at high efficiency. He was a top 40 player after he returned from his head injury last season. He was a top 40 player before his head injury last season. And while I'm not thinking he gets back to that level, I think that he will keep Josh Jackson at bay for at least a season, just with his ability to score. And he doesn't need 33 minutes. In 30 minutes, he can easily achieve this value. It all depends, though, what you need. If you're really struggling for threes, TJ's not going to be that guy to give you those numbers there. But I think he's a fairly strong player. I like the majority of these guys here in this tier, actually, for where you can get them. I think there is a significant value, with the exception of the pencil. I just think that he is getting drafted too high. What's your take on that? Because I spoke to the Mavericks guys the other day on the preview, and Barnes is getting drafted at pick 64 on Yahoo, which is like 20 spots higher than where he finished last season. And with a full season of Dirk, a full season of Noel, potentially, and the addition of Dennis Smith Jr., how the hell does he get better by 20 spots?
I got no idea, mate. No idea.
It's just not happening.
The only positive contributions now are in points and free throw percentage. So, maybe the pencil's slowly running out of lead. But just in terms of name value, I want to compare Trevor Ariza with Joe Ingles, and particularly with your projections. They're actually incredibly similar. So if you just said, who would you rather, Trevor Ariza or Joe Ingles? Probably in general, most people would say Trevor Ariza. And we've got them projected pretty much the same points, same same threes. Trevor Ariza's got a slight boost in rebounds. Joe Ingles has the slight advantage in assists. Ingles at 1.4, Stills Ariza at 1.5. And Ingles is going to be better from the field. So for guys who do very similar things, you can get Joe Ingles at maybe 3, 4, 5 rounds later than you can Trevor Ariza.
Oh shit, you can get him later. He's 140 ADP on ESPN. You can get him real late, and he's going to if he gives you 10, 4, and 3 with 1.5 steals and 2 triples, then that is perfect value. That's like value of 110th sort of guy. His value is significantly inflated by steals, as is Ariza's. And yeah, if you were punting steals, they wouldn't have much value. But I really like Ingles, and I've only got him projected at 30 minutes. Maybe he plays 34, maybe he plays 28, whatever. But at where you need to draft him, I think there's good value there for Ingles. Taurean Prince is a really popular late pick. I think that he's almost a top 100 lock, and you probably won't need to draft him there in most cases. And again, if someone grabs him at 70 and you don't, you go, oh damn, I missed it. Like you're not missing. Like if someone grabs him at 70 and that's where he's projected, like you're not missing, because I don't think he's getting to be a top 50 guy. You just go, oh well, my value was cut off here. Let's get someone else. Let's work someone else through here. That means someone else falls at least one spot and other stuff happens, rather than, and I have people who will message me this all the time. I'm at pick 45. Should I take Gary Harris here? And I go, well, I feel a high degree that Gary Harris will get to at a top 50 type of player. But I also think that taking him there is probably not the right way to go about it. Like if he's there at 60, then you snap him. If he's there at 75, then there's no doubt about it. But going at 40 for a guy like that, or doing the same with Prince at 70, I just don't see, there's no upside in that. You're not achieving extra value. And part of you can look at your team and you go, look, I drafted one in every round, and then a month into the season, hey, look at this, I've actually got 5 guys who are 5th round talents and 4 guys who are 4th round talents because I drafted them in the right spot. But if you're just grabbing these guys at their absolute ceiling, you're just taking away the ability for you to do that. So don't be worried, someone sniped me, they went 40 spots early and grabbed them. Don't worry about it. There's other guys around, and there's plenty of these sleeper type players who are around. You just got to be aware of how to deal with it.
Just want to mention Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for a minute now. There was a lot of hype around him this time last year going into the season. Didn't quite live up to that hype. What are your expectations for him this season?
His steal rate dropped significantly last season. I'm still pretty interested in him. His minutes were jerked all over the place. Only played 22 minutes a game, which is ludicrously low. He saw his per 36 steals go from 2.3 to 1.7, so it's like a 25% decrease. I'm pretty interested in him, but he was a guy that, and like I talked about with Ingles and Ariza, steals on these late round guys, it bumps them 50, 60 spots in rankings. So when you see them, like Ingles is projected at 78. Like it's not a realistic representation, because it's one category really putting this big thing in. And if that category doesn't work out quite how we want it to, then it's not going to work out well. But he's going to be the starting power forward. No doubt he's going to play more than 22 minutes. Really good rebounder for a small forward eligible player. Yeah, steals, good blocks. I think we might see an increase in efficiency from him this season. Solid free throws. I'm really happy with him as a late-ish type of pick, and there will be that bias against killed me last season. Yeah. So you can get him at 120, 130. He's going 144 on Yahoo. I'm all over that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once you get out of the top 100, really good pick. Moving on to tier 9, we've got Wilson Chandler, Kent Bazemore, Rudy Gay, and Mo Harkless.
This is yuck.
This is what? Sorry.
This is yuck. This group, like these, I'm not interested in these guys really at all.
I want Mo Harkless. Really like him. I know I've heard you talk about his drop off last season when Yusuf Nurkic came, but with Alan Crabb no longer there, he's just going to have a ton of minutes on the wing. Could be a guy who puts up a 1-1 with a steal, a block, and a 3 per game. But yeah, the other 3, Wilson Chandler, Kent Bazemore, and Rudy Gay. Not much to talk about there, I don't think.
This is probably going to shock people, but out of that group, I'd probably take Bazemore, and I think that Bazemore is a good player, but I think that he's going to get a big opportunity. Wilson Chandler, I don't think he can actually play more than 30 minutes a game most of the time, and he won't this year with Juancho getting some of those minutes there. And Chandler's fine, but he's just like below average in every category. And that's not all that exciting. Bazemore might handle the ball a little bit more. We saw him running point a little bit last season in that Tim Hardaway role, and Hardaway ran a lot of backup point last season for this team in the second half of the year. Maybe Bazemore's assist can come up. He can get good steals. Again, I still don't believe he's a good player, but he is a guy that has got that upside opportunity on a really bad team that could enable him to really exceed expectations. Rudy Gay, 31 years of age, coming off an Achilles, who's playing as a backup now behind Kawhi and LaMarcus Aldridge. There is no upside for him to push into a big role on this team. He won't be able to for a start, but there's no once he gets healthy, he'll get his... it's not like talking about Zach LaVine going, once he's recovered and rehab for 2 months in the season, he'll get his 33 minutes and he'll be starting. That's not happening for Gay. Like, when he gets better, he'll play 27 minutes a night and be really useful for this team if he gets back to it. And I was talking again about Wes Matthews and his Achilles injury. He came back super quick. Oh my God, he's an Iron Man. Look at him go, ready to go opening night. Has shot about 37% for the last 2 seasons. You just don't recover. So, yeah, Rudy Gay he'd need to slip a little bit for me to get behind him. What about, what do we got here for tier 10?
We've got Jay Crowder, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Larry Nance, and Terrence Ross. Once again, a pretty yuck sort of tier. Crowder lose a lot of value. Heading over to the Cavs, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, good out-of-position rebounds and a sort of a steal and a block per game. Larry Nance has probably got the highest upside of the lot of them. Well, he has got the highest upside of the lot. Just really needs to find some minutes, and that's going to be tough playing behind Brook Lopez and Julius Randle and those sort of guys there in LA. And Terrence Ross, another steals and 3 guy who averaged 1.4 and 1.9 respectively in his 24 games last season for the Magic. But yeah, that's about all you're going to get with him.
I think Larry Nance is the highest theoretical upside guy on this team, but when you look at it practically, the upside isn't there because the minutes aren't there. So if he was to get 28 a night, then he smashes the top 100 and he puts up those numbers. But you're banking on injuries to Randle happening or to Lopez, mainly to Randle, for him to get those minutes. And there's also the presence of Kyle Kuzma there too. So while Nance looks, oh my God, look at him on a per minute basis, it's fantastic. At 23 minutes a game, he fits into this and he can really help you with those defensive stats. The upside is through the roof, but the chance to get that upside, it's different. So there's, you can say the same thing about like Boban Marjanovic. Like man, if he got 30 minutes a night, he'd be killing it. But there's just no ability for him to get to 30 minutes a night, and that's the same sort of thing with Nance here. I like Terry Ross. I think that he will start and he can be that nice 3 and steals sort of guy. And I like Kidd-Gilchrist as well for that steals blocks combination. He's going to start. I think he's going to play some decent minutes. Clifford loves him. The field goal percentage is fine for a non-shooter. As for Jay Crowder, you're not going to get a chance to get him because he's going to go up in the 70s in these drafts, and that's just way too high for me. So he's not someone that you're going to need to pay attention to. But if he's around here, love it at this sort of a zone. But you're just not going to have that option.
You're not worried about Orlando adding Jonathan Simmons in the off-season and that impacting on Terrence Ross?
A little. I also don't think Simmons is all that good. I think Simmons is more of a 24-minute-a-game bench guy, backing up the 2 and the 3. I don't think that he's going to be... starting Simmons and playing him big minutes would be horrendous for spacing on a team that was horrendous for spacing last season. He's not a good shooter. He can score. I think he's perfectly suited for that slashing type of bench role. And I think that's where he fits in. So while I'm marginally worried, I'm not really. It's not like the Magic overpaid and paid out all this money to get Simmons to come across. They got him really cheap because the market wasn't that high for him because he's not that good. And we'll see, but I'm not worried.
He's one of those guys who, in a lot of sports, on a good team, it makes you look better, and then you move to a bad team, and you're like, yeah, actually, that player's not as good as he looks like. The players around him make him better than he actually is.
Yep, and the thing is, he wasn't actually good for San Antonio for most of last season. He had a good run in the playoffs when Kawhi was out, and that's stuck in people's mind. He had a good game opening night against the Warriors when the Spurs beat them, and he hit like 4 threes. But then he was literally out of the rotation for times during the season, like DNP CDs. He wasn't playing. huge minutes. He wasn't constantly pushing Danny Green and these guys. Like, he was out of the rotation. So, and there's a reason the Spurs look for that price. There's a reason the Spurs let him go, because they just go, well, we just don't think he's that. We don't think he's necessarily that good, despite that nice showing in the playoffs. I could be easily proven wrong, but I feel okay about that.
And the Spurs also let him go so they could sign Pau Gasol to a big contract as well. So.
Yep. And Rudy Gay coming off an Achilles injury, so there's that. They'll have to put that in. Tier 11 to wrap us up here, Matt.
Yeah, to finish us off, so the top 30 in each position, Al-Farouq Aminu and CJ Miles. Blazers front court, there's a couple of new guys there coming out of the draft, which means Aminu will probably have to play a bit more small forward this season.
Yep.
I'll say it again, and we've discussed this off of podcast, but there just seems to be a never-ending list of guys who could potentially average a steal, a block, and a 3 per game. There was 5 last season. We could potentially have 8 or 9 or 10 this season. That's not overly realistic, unrealistic, I should say. And CJ Miles will bring his 3-point shooting to Toronto, but I don't think you'll need to be drafting him in standard leagues, but always a really good streaming option when you need threes and points.
CJ Miles is a worse version than Terrence Ross, in my opinion. And Aminu, it's interesting. I think that Noah Vonleh will start there for Portland and play his 26 to 27 minutes. Aminu will get some minutes. He can be that 1-1 guy, but his shot was horrendous last season. Battled some injuries, and that did bother him. But I like Aminu as a late pick. I would have no problem with taking him with my last pick and seeing how that pans out. But I don't think he's going to be playing 32 minutes a night starting next to Nurkic. I think they're going to go with Vonleh there and run Aminu as the backup 4 and give him some backup 3 minutes as well, which will push him up there to some decent playing time, but not enough to be a must own sort of guy.
Anyone else like deeper leagues that didn't make the top 30?
I think Damari Carroll.
Stanley Johnson's probably one of the standouts.
Yep, Stan Johnson, Damari Carroll, for as much shit as I've given him over a period of time now, he's on a significantly worse team and could provide that value for deeper leagues. Chandler Parsons, I love as a last round pick.
Again.
Yep.
Josh,
yep.
You did that last season.
Have to do it.
Come on.
With your last pick, there is no one you can get who has top 50 upside, and he might have 10% chance of getting there, but Damari Carroll or Al-Farouq Aminu has 0 chance of getting there. So I will take it, especially when I can just go and grab someone else off. I can grab a Josh Jackson when he starts playing minutes. I can grab Stan Johnson. I can grab Jaylen Brown, who might be around. I can grab whoever in that spot. I'm all for taking a flyer with that last pick with someone who's got that upside until I hear that he's not ready to start the season. Then I'm out of, because his numbers they were just stupidly bad. Like it's incomprehensible how poor his numbers were. Forget about the injuries, forget about the games missed, forget about the minutes. The actual per minute stats and the percentages just made no sense, and you just feel like that if he's healthy, that all has to improve.
If he's healthy,
that's it. But that's it. Like in the first 2 weeks, if it's not happening, then he's gone. Yeah. But if he looks good, then you have just got yourself a massive, massive boost. And in those first 2 weeks, the amount of players who are going to get dropped who shouldn't get dropped. Like if Parsons for the first week is playing 22 minutes a night and struggling, go, cool, I'll just grab you because some dickhead in your league dropped Nick Batum. I'll go and grab him and win it. That he's an auto first drop sort of guy. But if he comes out and he starts and he plays 29 minutes a game, then it's on, and the minutes could come because they desperately need him. If they don't have him, and it sounds bad that you're going to be relying on Parsons, they're in a bit of trouble, Memphis. So
they got the other healthy Iron Man in Tyreke Evans. So
I think Evans is a good last pick as well, to be honest, because again he hasn't had a surgery in 18 months on his knee, which is, I guess, finding hope in poor situations. But the previous 9 months he had 3 surgeries, so we're looking at a guy that's was really managed through last season. And again, not many of these guys you can get top 60 value out of who could average 15, 5, and 4.5, and the secondary creation on Memphis is it's not good. Andrew Harrison is the backup point guard, or maybe it's Wade Baldwin, or maybe it's 32-year-old Mario Chalmers recovering from an Achilles injury. Like Evans is going to have whatever he wants to do in that second unit if he is healthy, and I feel more confident that Evans is healthy than Parsons, and I wouldn't take both of them, but one of those guys with the last pick, I'm all in.
I love your optimistic outlook, but at the same time, if you put lipstick on a pig, mate, it's still a pig.
We'll see. One of those guys. What about Justice Winslow as another guy who's a potential late round flyer? I'm not big on him. I don't think he'll start this year. But he's there. Bojan Bogdanovic, another guy that's a small forward who will get you some points and threes. Yeah, these are the guys that are just going to cycle on and off your roster throughout the season, I think, though.
Yeah, same with, Josh Jackson, maybe get some steals and out of position rebounds. PJ Tucker, probably not, and Will Barton off the bench in Denver. A couple of other names to mention, but
Kyle Korver is a 3-point streaming guy in that position.
Yep.
Jason Tatum, maybe.
Tatum.
Maybe there's a few guys that you can look at, but nothing that's you're really special. That's why I look at him and go, well, Parsons can have that. Like, he's much higher upside than any of those guys, and none of those guys you think, oh, he's going to give me solid 100 and top 120 production. None of those guys do that. Parsons might not. He might finish outside the top 300. He might finish inside the top 70. And that's why I'm happy to take that risk. And I don't care if I get burnt by a guy the year before. Doesn't really bother me. I just remember it, but I don't hold grudges against people who don't know that I exist. And that's pretty much what fantasy is, where people hold these grudges. Oh, screw this guy. Oh, Oladipo killed me last year. Doesn't know you exist. He doesn't care about that. So I don't know why you're holding a grudge against him. Just use his numbers to get you value as other people let him slide in drafts. Matt, we're done with this. We've got 2 more of these to come. A power forward one, obviously, and then we move on to the centers one. After that, doing a Basketball Monster mock draft at the moment, which will be written up on the site. The Red Rock Roto Listener Leagues kick off tomorrow, or maybe today when you're listening to this. So I think they're ready to go pretty soon. And good luck to everybody in those. They are 8-category rotisserie leagues, so make sure you're present in the draft room for those. It's a slow draft, 6 hours per pick, so you don't need to be present for the whole draft. Just come in and get your pick done. You'll get email reminders when that happens. Matt, let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter.
Yep, find me on Twitter at SManSports for all your fantasy basketball needs.
Go and follow Matt. Follow me at redrock_bball and subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Spotify, and leave us a 5-star review. It would be awesome. And go and subscribe to Basketball Monster. That's a great way of helping you dominate your fantasy leagues, your drafts, your waiver wire acquisitions, your trades, all that great stuff. If you have any questions about the site, you can always hit either myself or Matt or Kyle up on Twitter, and we will do our best to answer your queries. Matt, thank you once again.
Thanks, Josh. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, we are done here, guys.